Welcome back, guys. Thanks for joining. I appreciate you being here. And if you saw the thumbnail, I bet you're curious, who's that Pokemon? Well, let's find out. Did you guess Cubone? Because it's Cubone. And today I'm actually finishing this up. If you want to see, I'll be showing clips of all the 3D printing to get this going. It actually separates into 8 different pieces. It may look decent right now, but that's only because of all the tape, which is very temporary, and I want to be able to actually have my kid wear this for Halloween. So I'm going to take it apart. Well, and since it's only taped together, it's definitely not going to hold up very well as a costume. So what I'm going to do to finish it is actually weld it together. And not regular welding with metal or anything, but just melting the plastic essentially. If you've ever worked with 3D parts, they actually melt together really well. So all you have to do, and what I'm going to end up doing, is using a soldering iron and going through and running through all the nice little clean lines, melting it all together, and get this to be one solid piece so that my kiddo can wear it comfortably and securely and easily for Halloween. So let's get started. All right, and here we have it fully disassembled. You can see there are 8 pieces, and with that we're gonna start with the lower back. I have quite a few little extra pieces here. You can see some excess filament from printing to help fill any gaps. There were some areas that warped, so this is a pretty straight, this is a very straight piece, thankfully, to start, but there are definitely a few areas that do not meet perfectly the whole way that I'll have to fill in the gaps with filament. And I actually have the spool here as well if I need more. Hopefully not too much. I have little blue nippers to cut things off if needed. And I figured this little spudger to help smooth things out, to keep it neat if possible. And I actually have 2 soldering irons to see how this goes. A cordless battery-powered one and a corded one. Hopefully I could keep it with the battery-powered one because it'll be easier to maneuver and turn off for safety, but we'll see how it goes. And yeah, let's get started. I'm gonna use the excess tape to keep things aligned while I get the line and welding started, so helps keep things nice and tight. You only need a little at the start and finish generally. Make sure it's not going anywhere while you're melting things together. Alright, so this is going to be interesting. Alright, moment of truth. And I'm starting on the inside in case I make mistakes. They're not easy to see. Starting in the groove. I'm gonna kind of push it all together from the sides. I do want to work in a pretty well ventilated area for this as well. Definitely some nasty fumes to be careful about. Now, this is a pretty thick piece, so I'm going to, at the edges, really try to get nice and deep, as in a couple areas especially, to make sure it's melting together with a nice strong bond. But otherwise I'll be doing the inside and outside, so it still should be quite strong on its own. Be afraid to put a little extra pressure on it to get started and really get in deeper. And then just kind of, it helps to move the plastic back and forth in that groove that you make. Really make that connection strong. One nice thing, you don't really need extra glue or epoxy. You don't have to go that crazy with it. The bond that it makes when melting together is generally strong enough for most parts, so you don't have to worry about excess stuff along the way. See, at this point I should be able to take this tape off. We have the soldering iron out. It's a great time to even out any uneven, rough areas, clean up where you had supports and things like that. Definitely a great time to do that. Make sure it looks clean as you can, especially if you're going to end up sanding it down anyways. It helps save time on that side of things if you do it with the soldering iron to start. Looks like just a simple battery powered one is working great. Battery powered soldering iron. Obviously, if you want more control, there are fancier ones. This has no screen on it or readout of the temperature. So if you want that proper control so you're not worried about burning anything along the way, you can get better, more clear soldering irons nowadays, of course. But if you just have an older one lying around, just know it will work. You just got to pay attention to how it's melting, how quickly, how dirty your tip is. I didn't take the time to clean this off, but you'll see with a dirtier tip it'll leave a residue. It's not actually burning the plastic, it's just leaving the residue from previous soldering. So keep that in mind as well, that if you want a nice clean weld that if you're not going to paint after, especially, you want to be cautious of how the tip is before starting. But if you're painting it, it won't really matter. Sand and paint, and it'll cover it right up. So I'm using just a regular soldering tip as well. It would help. I've seen where ideally you can use honestly a wood burning tool set that has generally more bits. Getting a long flat, like flathead screwdriver style kind, would give you an easier way to go back and forth and really even things out. Since this is the only tip I have, this is the tip I'm using, so that's where we're at. But you know, if you want to make it easier on yourself, consider other soldering tips to help with the process. But the regular soldering tip, especially a skinny one, is good for any precise welding points you might have to work on. So it's definitely not a bad one to have. Oh yeah, you can see just with the inside weld, that's holding quite strong already. It's really amazing how well this works without using any extra solvents or solutions or glues or anything, epoxies, that you can really get strong connections, strong parts. So it really doesn't matter if you have a smaller printer, like I have a Elegoo Neptune 3 Pro, which is the smaller bed. So I did have to print this into multiple parts, and that's okay because I'm just going through, and this is just a few minutes of work really to go in and melt the plastic back together, basically doing what it does through each pass, essentially just by hand, and making a nice strong bond along the way, as if you printed it all in one from the beginning. Obviously, if you have a bigger printer and you can print things in all in one go, that is a win. These are somewhat larger parts and pretty big seams, so the amount of time going through and just welding it together, melting it together, it does take a little bit of time, to be fair, but compared to dealing with certain glues and solvents, measuring anything, depending if you're doing epoxies, this is certainly easier, safer, except, you know, it is hot stuff. There are some fumes, like I was saying, to keep it well ventilated, but otherwise it's very simple. And as long as you take your time and you hold things together with some simple tape, you know, you really don't have to, you can be very careful. I end up having to put a decent amount of extra filament in there, but it'll still hold. It'll come together. It's just going to take a little extra work to fill this gap in particular. So let's see how it turns out. So for thicker ones like this, when you really get the deeper trench to fill in, you definitely want to use the full-size filament to fill it in. The extruded excess is going to be a little too skinny. That's for more fine, precise work to fill in little gaps, but does a great job evening it out when you add a thicker piece to a deeper groove. So keep that in mind. It's a great option, so you can have a nice even surface with just PLA. One thing to note, I'm doing this with PLA. I haven't done it with any other filaments yet, so your mileage may vary when trying to weld maybe ABS or PETG together. It may not come together quite the same or as easily. I know for PLA it works really well going this route, so keep that in mind. Depending on what kind of parts you're working on, you might want to consider trying to print it all together. If it's more difficult to work with filament when it comes to welding it together, make sure you got a strong bond and everything. So definitely a lot to think about. For the most part, pretty straightforward if you're just always printing in PLA. And technically this white filament I have is a PLA plus, and it works almost identically like PLA. At this point, this is already quite strong, so I'm gonna take off the tape. We'll keep this ball rolling. Well, that was not that bad. It did take a little while, but I think it was well worth the work. And even though it looks a little ugly at this point, it is rock solid. I mean, this thing is not coming apart easy. I am very happy with the results and how rock solid this turned out as a solution. Really impressive for how simple it is. At the end of the day, there is some rough spots on the inside that I can sand down and everything, but I'm gonna leave those for another time. At this point, I'm more concerned on the outside and just making it look a little bit more white. I'm gonna actually just simply go through real quick, touch it up with some acrylic paint, just white paint, and see how it turns out. I want to do that real quick and we'll check out the results in just a moment. And I'm just going to do it to the outside. The inside does not really matter at this point in time, as you're not going to see it. So I'm going through and doing this on top of just the immediate weld. Ideally, come through with some quick sanding to make sure it's nice and smooth, but I just want to touch it up, get it all one color at the very least, because again, this is for my kid for Halloween, and at time of taping this, it's the day before Halloween, and I've been a little busy to be able to get this done sooner, so I'm just trying to get it in halfway decent condition so he can wear it, and we can touch it up and smooth it out even more after the fact if we're gonna keep it or not, you know, which I'm definitely gonna keep it, even if it just ends up as a background prop or something. I think it's super cool how well this turned out in the end, how cool it looks, and you know, it's just a fun little piece to have. So And just like that, nice and touched up. Just at least evened out, so at a first glance it doesn't look too horrific. But all in all, I couldn't be happier with how this turned out. I am definitely going to be keeping this for a long time. I just wish it fit me, but sadly not the case. Either way, it's going to be a fun thing to hold on to for the future and display, and yeah, clean up and improve over time as I as I find some time. Thanks for joining me through this. Hope you learned a little something. Either way, appreciate it. Thanks for watching.